So if you can sit somewhere with this stick in front of you. And we are going to do only one foot. We start with the right foot. So the left foot is just standing on the side, and the right foot is on the stick. And we start just by rolling the foot on the stick. Just rolling forward and backward. So you come all the way to the toes, and then you go all the way to the heel. So you explore all the surface, even the back of the heel. So you explore all the surface very slow, from the back to the front. All the way to the toes, or to the big toe. And it's good if you can sit, because then you don't have to deal with the balance. See if you can get the whole foot. So the whole width of the foot touches the stick. And then when you have done this a few times, then you turn your foot a little bit to the inside, and then you continue rolling, but now you roll a little bit on the outside of the foot. So you have your foot turned in, and you roll your foot along the lateral border of the foot. Maybe also all the way to the big toe. From the back of the heel to the big toe. And then after you did that for a few times, now you turn the foot in the other direction. And then you see if you can roll the foot along the stick on the medial, on the inner border of your foot. It's a little bit more difficult for me at least. Rolling it along. Then you just roll it in all different ways you like. So while you're rolling forward, you turn the foot in or you turn the foot out. But in this way, you travel all the different surfaces in, out, or maybe diagonal. And notice, as you do that, notice what your knee is doing. So when is your knee going in? When is your knee going out? And what is happening in your hip? Okay, and then just stand. And just compare the two sides. How does the right side feel? How does the left side feel? notice anything different in your knee, hip, maybe further up, anything between the two sides. And then we take it to the stick away and we take a ball. You take a ball, either you have a tennis ball or this hedgehog balls, and then you with this other ball, you do the left foot. Again, same in the same way, but more in the middle of the foot, all the way down to your heel, all the way to your toe. Then go to the outside. The border of your foot, running the foot more in. Medial border, running your foot out. Then, in different ways, just playing with the ball rolling in any direction, diagonal or from inside to outside or left to right, from the toes, the heels, one border, the other border. And as you do so, notice what your knee is doing. You're really moving your knee with your foot, and what the hip is doing or what's happening in the hip. Then again, just see how you touch the ground, how you feel the ground touching you or your feet. What's happening in your knees, what's happening in your hip, in your spine. And then starting to shift the weight a little bit, just a little bit, just like a small dance, with Steve Paxton calling that the small dance. So instead of being kind of fixed on the floor, you allow movement going through your joints, through your spine, and just feeling how different places of your foot, of your plantar surface, are in contact with the floor. So if I go a little bit back, maybe there's more weight on the heels. If they go a little bit forward, there's more weight on the toes, maybe more weight on the side, on one side, on the other side. Just notice how the weight is differently distributed in your feet as you sway a little bit around. And you can feel the fluidity in your hip joints, your knees. You can feel your tail moving, your coccyx, sacrum. And you can feel your feet actually before it comes to the bones of the feet. There is a quite a thick layer or layers of muscles and fascia. It's a kind of sponges. So if you, but sometimes I think about this this experience when you have when you walk in the wet grass and your shoes and your socks are completely wet and you're walking, and each step it makes this sound. It's like you feel the sponging in your socks. It makes like, and so with a little bit with that feeling in your feet, where are the sponges more compressed as you shift your weight? So you're not really moving the feet, you're moving the pelvis and the upper body a little bit, swaying a little bit, and you feel what happens to the feet, how the feet differently connect or contact the floor. So you might want to just play for a moment with what happens when I curve my upper body a little bit more. What happens to my feet? And what if I extend my upper body a little bit more, or more, or more, or more? What happens when I bring my pelvis more back? What happens when I bring my pelvis more forward? So how does this affect the feet? And how can I move my upper body in a way that the feet don't have to catch up all the time, but that my feet stay planted and grounded, and I can move my upper body in different directions without losing a lot of balance. So my feet stay planted and grounded, and I can go up and down, forward and back, and I counterbalance my upper body so my feet stay planted. Okay, let's come back to standing again. And now we start from the feet. So now, if you move or lift your the outer borders of your feet. So your weight is on the inner, on the medial borders, like this. And notice what happens to the knees and to the hips. And then lift the inner arch, the inner border, and so your weight is all on the lateral border of the feet. And notice what happens to your knees and your hips. And then just play around between the two. Going in, going out, and notice also how your ankles need to adapt to the movement. So out, in, out, in. And then do one in and one out. So your knees, both knees move to one side and then to the opposite. And really allow your knees and your hips to come with it. So don't try to block your ribs, your hips or your knees, but let them really come with it. To turn to one side. Then again, bring your lifting your lateral border of the feet, and then try to walk like that. Trying to walk. How is it to walk like that? And then the same on the outside border, and walk like that. And then walk normally. So maybe now walking normally, you notice that as you walk, you always have a play between more like turning the foot in, turning the foot out. So you have the ankle is free to move. And if you, for example, just block one side and you want to move, you feel that it's how difficult it is to move with one foot blocked in one direction. And then just walk again. It's very easy without thinking about it. Okay. Let's take one more step. If you can, you can if you can kneel somewhere, and if you kneel, you can also kneel without holding. Just moving your ankles either with your toes up or your toes like this, and just move your ankles and notice what is happening in your hips. Just moving your ankles in one direction and allowing the hips to respond, and notice if there's a difference. Is there a difference from one side to the other side? Ankles in the same direction, or both ankles out, both ankles in. So you can play a little bit with this different way, and just notice how your hip joints respond, how your spine responds. So allowing to be your whole body responsive and available for the movement of your ankles. And if you want, you can also sit, if you can. For some people, it's not so easy. You can sit on your ankles and then do the same thing, like you transition to side sitting, and then see what is your ankle here available to, or are the ankles somewhere blocked? And now here my left ankle, and then what do I need to move my left ankle so I can come back to the middle and then go to side sitting on the other side? So how do my ankles need to be available so I can just shift between the sides? Or I come back to play with it with kneeling. And you can even imagine that somebody is taking your ankle and moving them to the side. So somebody reminds you to move your ankles. And then to finish, I see Daniel is already going to the floor. Let's go to rolling. So let's come to the floor. Right. So you're on the floor. You put your on the back and put your feet up in the air. And now do the same thing. You do, bringing the inner arch up or lifting the lateral border. And notice that your knees, how the knees respond to that. So your knees can go out when the inner border is lifting. The knees go in when the outer border is lifting. It's an inversion, eversion. So both in, both out, or one in, one out. The same as we did in standing and kneeling. And then you notice how that affects your hip and how you and go from this play from the ankles into rolling. For example, you just put one down and then you start from the ankle to roll. So from the foot, what is the movement of the foot? Goes into the knee, goes into the hip, and that brings you into rolling. Or in the other direction. So if I lift in the inner border, well, maybe takes me in this direction. If I lift the outer border so I can play, what are my feet doing and how is my upper body responding to that? Even my shoulders and my hands, my arms, my head, how is that all responding to the movement of the feet, of the ankles? Just taking some time to play with that. With the feet in the air, or you can also play with that with the feet on the ground, where then when you lift the outer arch, the outer border, your big toe becomes available to push. And how that push travels through your ankle, knee, hip, into the upper body. And how in the different phases of rolling, you have contact, like this foot has contact with the lateral border, and as I bring in the knee, now it has contact with the medial border. So exploring really how the feet are, where are my feet in relation to each other, in relation to the knee, in relation to the hip, and where are the feet in relation to the inner border, the outer border, big toe, heel, maybe sometimes it's more the heel, sometimes it's more the toes. And how that continues into your upper body. If you like, also in sitting, and now you have basically the same play. It's like what my foot is doing, how my foot is moving at the ankle, lifting the outer border or lifting the inner border, and how that affects my pelvis. So if I let my pelvis follow, I'm moving. And, going side sitting, or I can come to many other positions also, to kneeling or hands and knees. When are is my outer border sliding along? When are my heels sliding? When I have contact with my toes? All the way coming up to there, walking, or again to kneeling, and I can see, or half kneeling. Here I can also see how my feet are relating to the floor. Squatting. I'm also in squatting how I'm not on this table, but I can in squatting, I can shift my weight to one foot, and I can be aware of where is the weight, or how initiate from my feet to change my position. And all the way up to standing, and from standing going back down to rolling, making all these transitions, and just notice how your feet are following or initiating. Your feet can initiate by moving the ankle, or they respond to changing something in your upper body or in your pelvis. The movement can start in the feet by lifting the lateral border or lifting the medial border, increasing the arch. And this moves or goes through your knees, your hips, into your spine, or your upper body moves or your pelvis moves, and it makes you shift in your feet. And in any position, if you're standing or if you're rolling, if you're on all fours, if you're squatting, any position, in any position you use your feet or your feet respond. And then again, if you like, you can just block your ankle on one side, just continue to move and just keep your foot in eversion, in lifting the lateral border of your foot, and keep on moving. Try to move as you moved before, and just keep one foot, the lateral border lifted, because that is the challenge many children have with cerebral palsy or spasticity, which we saw also earlier in Vanan, that the ankle doesn't move so much. So that it's really challenging and affecting all joints in the body. It's not only the ankle, but the knees, the hips, and also the abductors. So the adductors, the muscles bringing the knee to the midline. It affects the muscles bring the knee to the midline. And this is like, if both sides are affected, that's a typical gait you see for children with the spasticity in the legs. And it's very much related to the ankles. And you can also imagine that walking like that, you could also injure your ankle. It could you could easily sprain your ankle if it's not responding to what the upper body does. When you shift weight and the ankle is not responding, you can more easily injure or sprain that ankle.